Hey everyone, this is Pilot. Now that the series on Bionicle years is concluded, I've gone ahead and compiled all the shorts into a single video. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy it. This is the 2001 Bionicle Story in 60 seconds, let's begin. In the time before time, there was the great spirit Mata Nui and his brother Makuta. Mata Nui came to be worshipped by the Matoran for his benevolence, who named their island home in his honor. Makuta became jealous of these gifts and cast Mata Nui into a deep slumber. Darkness fell upon the island. However, legend told of 6 mighty heroes that would arrive to defeat Makuta. When the Matoran Takua placed 6 Toa stones at the temple of Kini Nui, the legendary Toa Mata would be summoned and arrive on Mata Nui soon after. There was Tahu, Gali, Lewa, Kopaka, Onua, and Pohatu, and it was their destiny to defeat Makuta and reawaken the Great Spirit. To succeed in their quest, the Toa would first need to collect masks of power scattered about the island. Upon completion, the Toa would be rewarded with a special golden mask, which would give them the power necessary to defeat Makuta. With their task complete, the Toa would descend into Makuta's lair and work together to defeat him. However, little did they know Takua had followed close behind. In the aftermath, Takua would escape Makuta's lair, but awaken a new threat along the way. This is the 2002 Bionicle Story in 60 seconds, let's begin. After Makuta's defeat in 2001, the Matoran Takua was left stranded in his lair. During his escape, a new threat to the island of Mata Nui would be awakened, the Bohrok swarms. The goal of the Bohrok was to clean it all, to wipe Mata Nui clean of life in preparation for the Great Spirit's awakening. Thing is, there were still Matoran and Toa living on Mata Nui, so the denizens of the island would mount a defense to protect their home. They found that the weakness of the Bohrok lay in their Krana, the brain-like entities that controlled them. If they were to defeat the Bohrok, the Toa would first need to collect a Krana of each type. With their Krana collected, the Toa would ascend into the Bohrok nest and combat their leaders, the Bohrok. The Toa would then seal them in a cage of protodermis, severing their connection to the Bohrok swarms. The island was saved, but the Toa wouldn't emerge from the nest quite the same. Through exposure to energized protodermis, the Toa Mata would now become the Toa Nuva. This is part 1 of the 2003 Bionicle Story in 60 seconds, let's begin. After the defeat of the Bohrok, the Toa Mata would be transformed into the Toa Nuva, granting them greater power than ever before. However, their newfound powers would not last long, as the elite Bohrok-Kal would emerge with the goal of freeing the Bohrok. The Bohrok-Kal would steal the Nuva symbols from the Toa, preventing them from using their elemental abilities. Now without their powers, the Toa Nuva would need to work together to defeat the Bohrok-Kal and stop them from unleashing the Bohrok once again. The Toa Nuva would try their hardest to defeat the Bohrok-Kal as they search for the Bohrok, but these efforts would ultimately prove fruitless. Eventually, the Bohrok would discover the location of the Bohrok and attempt to insert the Nuva symbols into the Nuva cube to awaken them. To stop them, Tahu would call upon the Mask of Time to give his fellow Toa an opportunity to defeat them. By focusing immense amounts of elemental power through the Nuva symbols, the Bohrok-Kal would finally be destroyed. This is part 2 of the 2003 Bionicle Story in 60 seconds, let's begin. On the day of the Koli Championship, the Matoran Takua was wondering about Tawahi when he stumbled upon the Kanoia Voki, the Mask of Light. The Turaga spoke of a prophecy regarding the mask, one telling of the arrival of a 7th Toa. Takua and his friend Jalar would then be sent on a quest to find the 7th Toa, and Makuta would soon learn of this discovery as well. Anxious to stop the arrival of the 7th Toa, then Makuta would create the 6 Rakshi and send them on their own quest to retrieve the Mask of Light. As Takua and Jalar journeyed across Mata Nui, the Rakshi would follow close behind, destroying many of the Matoran villages along the way. This eventually led to a final confrontation where Jalar would sacrifice himself to save Takua. This made Takua realize that he was the 7th Toa this whole time, and donned the Mask of Light, transforming him into Takanuva, Toa of Light. Takanuva would then defeat the Rakshi and battle Makuta to win the day, before finally using his powers to revive Jalar. This is the 2004 Bionicle Story in 60 seconds, let's begin. Rewind 1,000 years to the island of Metru Nui. As a dark shadow loomed over the city, its last defender Toa Lakan sought out a new generation of Toa. This team consisted of Akama, Nokama, Matau, Nuju, Wenua, and Anawa, and it was their duty to uncover and confront the dangers plaguing Metru Nui. Now called the Toa Metru, this team would seek out the 6 great Kanoka discs, and use them to defeat the plant-like Morbuzak. Victorious, the Toa expected to be praised as heroes by the Matoran. However, instead, they would be labeled as traitors by Metru Nui's leader Torakaduma. Now on the run, the Toa would need to evade the Dark Hunters and Vakis sent to hunt them down. Along the way, the Toa would realize their powers and discover the darkness at the heart of Metru Nui. Torakaduma had been impersonated by the Makuta, who was planning to usurp Mata Nui as ruler of the Matoran universe. Makuta succeeded in sending Mata Nui into a deep slumber, but the Toa used their combined power to imprison him, saving the Matoran. This is the 2005 Bionicle Story in 60 seconds, let's begin. In the midst of their efforts to rescue the Matoran, the Toa Mata return to the city to find it overrun by the Visorak horde. The Toa are captured and infected with Hordika venom, turning them into nightmare versions of themselves. Now transformed into Toa Hordika, the Toa are left to wrestle with their new animal instincts as they attempt to fulfill their duty. Along the way, Vakama finds himself manipulated by Rudaka with the prospect of leading the Visorak horde. Frustrated by his teammates, Vakama is enticed by this offer, but is blind to Rudaka's true intentions. In reality, Rudaka seeks to usurp Sidorak as leader of the Visorak, and use the elemental powers of the Toa Metru to free the Makuta. The Toa embark on a journey to reverse their mutations by finding the mystical Rahi known as Kitungu. Kitungu agreed to help, but first the Toa will need to prove themselves in battle against the Visorak. Thanks to Matau, Vakama learns the error of his ways, and Rudaka is defeated, though not without freeing the Makuta. Finally arriving on the shores of Mata Nui, the Toa Metru have fulfilled their destiny and transform into Turaga. This is the 2006 Bionicle Story in 60 seconds, let's begin. After Makuta's defeat in 2003, the Matoran of Mata Nui were returned to the city of Metru Nui. As they began to rebuild, the future looked bright, but soon the Turaga would learn that Mata Nui was dying. Their only hope was the legendary Kanui Ignaika, the Mask of Life, which the Toa Nuva would be sent to find on the island of Voya Nui. Upon arriving on Voya Nui, however, the Toa Nuva would be swiftly defeated by the vicious Paraka. Having grown wary, a group of Matoran would band together to uncover the truth about Mata Nui and learn of his terminal condition. Consisting of Jaller, Holly, Kangu, Matoro, Nuparu, and Huki, this team would take it upon themselves to find the Mask of Life. In their journey to Voya Nui, the Matoran would be transformed into Toa by the mysterious Red Star, giving them the power they needed to defeat the Paraka. In doing so, they prevented the Paraka from taking the mask for themselves, while also freeing the Matoran of Voya Nui. The Mask of Life would fly from the Toa's grasp, however, sinking into the ocean below. This is the 2007 Bionicle Story in 60 seconds, let's begin. After falling into the ocean, the Kanui Ignaika wound up in the underwater city of Mari Nui. The mask would be discovered there, not only by the Matoran but also by the villainous Baraki. Imprisoned here long ago, the Baraki became mutated by the black waters of the pit, and believed the Mask of Life could restore their original forms. The Baraki weren't the only ones after the Ignaika, however. Makuta, now in the body of a Maxilos robot, and the pit's jailer Hydraxin, also sought the mask for their own purposes. Needless to say, the Toa weren't going to let them have it. Journeying to Mari Nui, the Toa Naika became transformed into the aquatic Toa Mari, and were prepared to fight for the Ignaika. As time went on, the war for the Ignaika continued to rage, and the Great Spirit only came closer to death. The mask would swap hands numerous times, but finally found itself in the grasp of Toa Mari Matoro. In a last-ditch effort, Matoro would don the Kanui Ignaika, heroically sacrificing his own life to save Mata Nui and the Matoran universe. This is the 2008 Bionicle Story in 60 seconds, let's begin. In wake of Matoro's sacrifice, the Toa Nuva were now ready to achieve their destiny of awakening the Grey Spirit. Arriving in Karta Nui, the core of the Matoran universe, the Toa would combat the Brotherhood of Makuta as they search for the Mask of Life. In a twist of events, however, the Ignaika would find them. Using its powers, the Kanui Ignaika grew a body, becoming the Toa Ignaika. The Toa Nuva, alongside the Toa Ignaika and the shadow-infected Takanuva, would wage one final battle to awaken Mata Nui. In the swamps of Karta Nui, the Toa would discover the Kodrex, which could be unlocked using the elusive keystones. In addition to the Mask of Life, the Kodrex would be key in awakening Mata Nui. As the battle came to a close, the Toa Ignaika would make a sacrifice just as Matoro had done before. In destroying his body, the Mask of Life would provide the necessary energy to finally awaken the Great Spirit. Though in a turn of events, Makuta would take this opportunity to take over Mata Nui's body. Imprisoning him within the Mask of Life, the Kanui Ignaika was then launched into space. This is the 2009 Bionicle Story in 60 seconds, let's begin. After being sealed within the Mask of Life and ejected from the Matoran universe, Mata Nui would find himself on the desert planet of Bara Magna. With a new body created by the Ignaika, Mata Nui would begin a long and arduous journey to reclaim his old robot body. In his travels, Mata Nui would meet and befriend many of the Agori and Glatorian living on Bara Magna, some of whom would aid Mata Nui in his quest. There was Akar, Kina, Gresh, and Barracks. Together, this team would overcome the dangers plaguing Bara Magna and rediscover lost elemental abilities using the Mask of Life. Namely, it was the Skrull who stood in their way. Physically stronger than Glatorian, the Skrull had long dominated the arena, robbing valuable resources from the other tribes. Now the Skrull aimed to conquer and rule Bara Magna. Under the command of the mighty Tuma, the Skrull would attack many of the settlements scattered across Bara Magna. That wasn't until Mata Nui defeated Tuma in a duel, ending the Skrull's reign of terror and uncovering a traitor hidden among the tribes. Mata Nui had proven himself and was now prepared for the journey to come. This is the 2010 Bionicle Story in 60 seconds, let's begin. After the defeat of the Skrull, the denizens of Bohrok-Kal Magna reorganized themselves into one massive village. Mata Nui would soon discover that this mega village was created using the scattered parts of a prototype robot. It would take some convincing, but Mata Nui planned to reassemble this prototype robot. Maybe then he could stand a chance against Makuta. With the prototype robot assembled, Mata Nui would assume control and begin the process of reforming Spherus Magna, attracting Makuta's attention. Arriving on Bohrok-Kal Magna soon after, it was time for the final confrontation. Being at a massive disadvantage, Mata Nui likely would have lost this battle had it not been for the valiant efforts of Toa Mata, who gave the Great Spirit the opening he needed to deal the final blow. By crushing his head against the incoming moon of Aqua Magna, Makuta and the Matoran universe were no more. As Matoran universe inhabitants evacuated onto Spherus Magna, Mata Nui would use the last of his energies to reform the planet. With his mission complete and Makuta defeated, Mata Nui would become dormant inside the Kanoi Ignika. His final wish? Rebuild.